Hey everyone, this is Leo. Welcome to a new series that I'm gonna try doing here on the channel. We're gonna call it Archetype Architect, which is a little bit hard to say, and I'm probably gonna mess it up a couple times. But essentially, in this series, we're gonna review a deck that just released or will be releasing soon. Obviously, in this case, the set released I think like almost 2 weeks ago, so I am a little bit late, but hopefully this can still help some people. Maybe learn about a deck before they invest into it. So we're just going to look at what support it got out the box. We're going to see a couple things. So the way we're going to break down the video is we're going to divide it into a couple pieces. So firstly, we'll talk about the right line. Obviously, we'll discuss the grade 3 boss there. Then we'll talk about direct support cards that the boss received in that set. Then we'll follow that up with some recommendation cards that you might want to consider playing or that have been seen play in the deck in Japan, or just in if I've been playtesting it. You know, if I have a little bit more practice with certain decks, I might be able to give you a bit more. And then we'll just after that we'll just wrap it up with some final thoughts. So hopefully this video isn't going to be too long. I'm hoping to shoot under 10 minutes. But with that, let's get into it and start talking about the new Dragon Empire boss from the Youthquake manga, KOTIHBLAZE. So for the ride line, we start with the grade 0. We have Enryu, who isn't anything special. He's not required for any effects, but it's the starter released alongside him, so we're going to mention it. Moving on to the grade 1, we've got Sinful, who when wrote upon by Baldrus, which is a grade 2, lets you Soul Blast 1 to check top 7, reveal 2 cards with different grades. If you choose a grade 3 card, then it goes to your hand. If not, then both of the other cards will go into Soul. Sinful doesn't have any other effects, so you're probably just going to play the one in the ride line, and that's it. This effect, forcing you to add the grade 3 to hand, does kind of work against you. But you're going to see that as we move along and discuss a couple more of the cards. But with that, let's move on to the grade 2, Balja, who when wrote upon by a grade 3 KOTIHBLAZE lets you draw a card, then you can call a grade 3 or less card from your hand. If you don't call a card, then you have to discard a card. I do wish that instead of discarding, it made you put the card into Soul, but the card's already out, so we can't do anything about that. Baldrus does have a rearguard ability, which grants it plus 5k power during both players' turn if your Vanguard is a unit with KOTIHBLAZE, so I would recommend you run 3 extra copies in the main deck. And the reason for that will become clear as we talk about the main boss himself, KOTIHBLAZE. He has 2 abilities. The first allows you to, once per turn, counterblast 1 to look at top 5, reveal 2 grade 3 or less cards with different names. Then you choose to call up to 1 to rearguard and put the remainder in Soul. If you notice a trend, we have a focus of on Soul and certain cards that we've seen so far, and that's because of KOTIHBLAZE's second effect, which at the end of the battle at attack allows you to pick one of the following. You can either Soul Blast any 2 cards, and then for each of the cards Soul Blasted for this effect, you can stand a rearguard with the same name as him, and they gain plus 5. Or you can Soul Blast 2 cards with the same name as KOTIHBLAZE from Soul and discard a card to restand KOTIHBLAZE, with it gaining plus 5k and losing a drive. This ability, however, is not once per turn. So if you happen to have 2 copies of KOTIHBLAZE in Soul and a copy of both of your front row rearguards, you can perform a total of 6 attacks. But with that, we wrap up the ride line. We'll discuss a bit more at the end. I do want to give some thoughts on KOTIHBLAZE, but I'll save that for the final thoughts portion. But now we'll move on to support units. So KOTIHBLAZE received a total of 4 support units, which are 1 grade 3, 2 grade 2s, and 1 grade 1. We'll start from the top and move our way down. So we'll start with the grade 3, which is Ember Breath Dragon. He's got 2 abilities. The first being a plus 5k during your turn if your Vanguard is KOTIHBLAZE, a solid 18k attacker, which during the Persona Ride turn becomes 28k, which means they can't just use a crit to guard it. They have to use a effect front or use 2 cards, which, you know, is pretty good. The second ability is a sort of weaker version of KOTIHBLAZE's first ability, with it allowing you to once per turn counterblast 1 if your Vanguard is KOTIHBLAZE to let you look at the top 3, reveal a card from among them. If the card is a grade 2 or less normal unit, you can call it to rearguard. If it is not, then you add the card to hand. So if you decide to play orders, then you can add them to hand with this ability. However, if you use this ability, Ember Breath will move itself into Soul at the end of turn. This does help you set up your future swings by getting a copy of him into Soul, so it's not bad to use. If you just need to dig for some pieces, you can definitely call him behind Vanguard or behind a grade 2 that can hit without needing a booster, and then he'll just go into Soul, which will then help you move on for setup for future times, right? But let's move on to the grade 2s. We'll start with Tyron, who also has 2 abilities. The first giving him plus 5k when he attacks if your Vanguard is KOTIHBLAZE. This makes it easier for him to swing at a grade 3 Vanguards by becoming a 15k. Not a giant number, but it will hit. The second ability activates at the end of the battle at attack. You can either reveal a grade 3 card with KOTIHBLAZE in its card name from your right deck, or have a Vanguard with KOTIHBLAZE to then move Tyron into Soul to draw a card. So this is another unit that gets itself into Soul, which is pretty good for setting up your big 6 attack turn. Following that up, we have Jaden, or Jaden, not really sure how to pronounce it, because Jaden is with an E. I don't know how you would say Jadan, Jadon, maybe. Another grade 2 that also has 2 abilities. The first will probably not see much use, but in a pinch you might use it. It states when Rajan is placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard is KOTIHBLAZE, you can counterblast 1 to retire an opponent's rearguard, then you can choose to discard a card to retire another rearguard. It's quite a big ask just for a retire 2. You have to CB and you have to discard, which doesn't I'll just give you a glimpse into the future. This deck doesn't have a countercharger, and Dragon Empire doesn't really have any good ways of countercharging generically, so your CB's not coming back unless you heal. We do still play a set of Jadon in most lists just because of his second ability, which will put him into Soul when he's retired from either Rearguard or Guardian Circle. So if you have at least 2 copies in your hand, you can call one over the other and then have the one you called over move into Soul, which will then allow you to restand it. So that's probably the only unit that allows you to get that done quickly. So that's why we play a full set. Then we have to move on to the last support unit, which is Dejaru, who's the grade 1, who unsurprisingly also has 2 abilities, which is weird that almost every unit or support unit does have 2 abilities. But the first ability allows you to rest him if your Vanguard is KOTIHBLAZE to select a normal unit without Sentinel from your drop and put it on the bottom of the deck. You can then choose a unit with the same name as the card you put on the bottom and give it plus 5k. This is a nice way to recur units and add some extra power to the board. But now we have his second ability, which is a bit strange for the deck strategy that we're seeing, but it triggers when your KOTIHBLAZE Vanguard is attacked. You can put Dejaru into Soul and give your Vanguard plus 15k for that battle, which is quite a random effect when you put it next to the other cards. This deck doesn't seem like a defensive deck. I mean, we have Janan, who goes into Soul from Guardian Circle, but it's still not really cohesive, that they gave it a weird sort of... This feels like a Sienna card, which is why it's kind of strange feeling. But with that, we are done with the support units, so let's quickly talk about the recommendations. So for this section, we'll just talk about some non-archetype cards we might want to try and KOTIHBLAZE to fill out the slots, starting with the energy cycle, as the deck has no use for energy, so you can just use it on getting some extra cards when you discard for Ride or when you use it to Guardian. And you can even return any Dejarus from your drop to get yourself some extra shield. Following that, we have the Dual Nation Dragon Empire Dark States unit from Festival Booster 2024. Don't remember his name. I think it's forward and reverse. I think somewhere around there. But when it's placed on Rearguard Circle from hand, you can Soul Charge 1 and gains plus 5k. Then you can Counterblast 1 to either retire an opponent's Rearguard or call a grade 2 or less unit from Soul to Rearguard. I personally don't like random Soul Charging, but its ability to call out any duplicates in Soul to create a board for you, and it is a 15k attacker. If you get another one in there, it'll be a 15k attacker, and then it'll become 20k attacker. Pretty good. Following that, we have the Order package for Dragon Empire, which includes Latifa, Shenri, and pretty much any order you might want to play. I would suggest the grade 2 order from Fated Clash, since it uses energy and does help you thin the deck. The last suggestion I have is Orlando, which is a grade 1 that can facilitate your multi-attack and can get itself out of Soul if needed. There aren't many cards that synergize well, but KOTIHBLAZE already has a promo order revealed that will hopefully increase its viability. But now let's get into our final thoughts. So we've now seen everything the Archetype has to offer, and now we can discuss it a bit. I don't think they built this deck very well, but I don't think it's KOTIHBLAZE's fault. If you read him, he's not a bad card. You have 5 attacks, the possibility for 6, not considering the OT obviously. He helps you thin the deck with his first ability, and it sets up his second ability. I think the real reason this deck doesn't feel very well is simply the support around KOTIHBLAZE. Most of his cards aren't very good, with most boiling down to a plus 5k power increase. Things like Ember Breath and Tyrant both moving into Soul after attacking, or at the end of the turn, means you have to attack in a weird way. In your first couple turns, you're not going to get that 18k swinger that can restand until your second grade 3 turn, unless you get lucky and get the Ember Breath into Soul. So that's pretty bad. I wish we would have seen an effect similar to Forktail that allowed you to thin the deck easily. And the Dejaru should have given power to your rearguards when they stood up to increase your pressure of your power output, right? But I think the great thing about KOTIHBLAZE is that he is generic. None of his cards are needed for his main deck, right? Besides his grade 2 from the Ride line, you don't have to play any of his cards. It'd probably be beneficial to play some of them because they do help, but you don't have to. So you could, in theory, build a deck that doesn't use any of the KOTIHBLAZE cards and just uses the generic Dragon Empire support that is available to maybe build a stronger deck than what his support is offering. I think that the KOTIHBLAZE himself is very strong, that first ability, and always essentially having guaranteed 5 attacks is very strong if they can create some units that just give some extra power, because I feel like that's one thing the deck lacks a lot, is that you don't have any power gain coming from anywhere, you know. But I think the deck overall needs more support, and I'm hoping to see some good support coming for it in the future. We do have the promo. We have no official release date for it, unfortunately, but we're hoping that I'm hoping that that deck, that KOTIHBLAZE, does receive more support cards. We're hoping for some good support cards that will allow it to maybe do a little bit better, right? But with that, we're done with the first Archetype Architect. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed it. I hope it doesn't feel a bit too rushed. I have been working on this a bit. I had originally already recorded this and had it ready to release the Friday of the set releasing, but I didn't like how the video came out, so I essentially scrapped it and then tried to do it again. But if you guys enjoy it, I will be doing more of the decks from this set. I will be doing Dayusha, I'll be doing Undercover, I'll be doing Storasia, and I will be doing Sacrifice Glass. Then, if you are someone who enjoys Archetype, Shoujo Doji, Lukier, or any other decks that have come out, I will be doing a separate video called the Support Survey, in which we'll be talking about the support that came out for already existing decks in this set, and we'll just talk about a lot of the cards in there, maybe just discuss them a little bit, see if what is worth picking up, what is not. But I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Leo. Thank you all for watching.